Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Popular Unknown Paintball Podcast. I'm sure you're very surprised to hear from me this quickly, and I am going live, but this is for episode 30 of my audio podcast. And I had the opportunity to talk to somebody I've been wanting to talk to for a long time. And he was saying, I have free time right now. And I said, okay, well, let's get this done right now. So this is more unscripted than usual. This is more, I don't know, expect me to make a lot of mistakes because I'm going to, because I'm very excited. It's got a really cool guest today. Before we get started, I do want to make a quick shout out to Push. I have to give a shout out to Combat Pursuit, my home paintball field. Make sure you go to combatpursuit.com, see when we can play again. I have to shout out to Virtue. I have to shout out to the Ally Remembered Foundation. So many people, but because time might be limited. Oh yeah, and Immortal Air. Can't forget Immortal Air, and can't wait to see the new stuff coming out. So Dan, Colby, talk to me because you're supposed to be sending me stuff and telling me about stuff. So waiting to hear from you. Anyway, guys, my guest is none other than Justin Owen, team captain of arguably the most dominant mechanical paintball pro team currently playing at the moment. How is that for bad English? Anyway, forget that, and let's go with Justin Owen. Hey, Justin, how are you? Did you catch me stuttering?
Hey, buddy, I caught it.
I am so not professional.
You're pretty good. Actually, we got a good chance to talk at the World Cup, so I've been looking forward to this too. This is fun.
Yeah, we did, and that was great. I actually got a little bit of footage of you guys doing breakouts and stuff that I put up on my site. I think.
Okay. But yeah, we had a good event. It's 2 years in a row that we managed to pull that. I got to tell you, I saw your intro. Man, how can I live up to that? Because there are so many. I'm the kind of guy that tends to look at us and focus on the ways that we need to be better. And so, how can I live up to that? So we've managed to be fairly successful here in the Revival, but there's so many good teams and a lot of talent.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Like I'm a huge fan of the OG Ironman. Like, right?
Yeah,
actually,
yeah. I've noticed.
Somebody actually noticed that. By the way, for those of you that are listening to this on the audio podcast, I am actually streaming this live on my Facebook channel. So occasionally I might talk about comments, and this Facebook user said, I like the jersey with a heartbeat. So
I like the jersey too, but the last time that I saw it leaves us with some bad memories.
Okay. Well, did you guys get beat? Is that what happened? Or
we did. The Ironman beat us on the Hyperball field at the Tampa ICPL, Tampa 2020 ICPL.
Okay.
That happened. So I will say that I felt like it's funny because I had told my guy, I said, listen, the Ironmen are very good. They have a very strong back line, and I've watched them win games that they were losing over and over and over and over again. Very strong players, very technically solid. They don't make mistakes, and they capitalize on other teams' mistakes. So I was having this discussion with my team, and then I was on the sidelines actually watching that game, and I think we were up 8-4. And then lost the game with the Ironman. I think ended up winning with 3 guys alive, doing exactly that. Very good team. I think they're coming into their own. I don't think they've gotten anywhere close to their potential. They've got good leadership, very technical guys, and I think I'm expecting good things from them.
Well, they've got a lot going on off the field, and they're bringing, like, a lot of the team has actual kids playing, like their kids, like you've got your daughter playing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got a lot of sons playing, and they're just starting to teach them, but they're practicing regularly. So obviously, I don't think anybody's going to do well this year, but I think that next year, well, I mean, there's a lot going on with how the craziness is going on in this world right now, like unprecedented times. So that's definitely going to affect everything. But
yeah, it's true. I mean, nobody's ever seen anything like this. And so there's been a lot of discussion about paintball, but I mean, clearly worldwide right now, there's some much more important things and bigger fish to fry.
Right.
So everything's up in the air. Somebody was asking me not too long ago what we have on the docket. And right now we're just waiting to see kind of when these things start to get more under control and restrictions are lifted, and we can actually all start talking about playing paintball again. I guess right now it's just talking.
Yes.
And we're wanting to get back out on the fields. but none of us really know when that's going to be.
No, and it's valid. So I have to ask, when did you start playing paintball?
1987. So I've been playing now for almost 33 years.
So you got 2 years on me.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I started in 1989.
Nice.
Yeah, my first gun was a Nightmare Competition short barrel by Brass Eagle.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Mine was a prototype, I think a prototype Ranger. It looks exactly like the Ranger. I never got a manual or anything with it, but I won it in a target shooting contest. And then Bud Orr, who I think you're friends with.
Big friends with, yeah.
I don't know if he remembers it, but he handed me the gun himself. I won a target shooting competition, borrowing the guy's gun that was in first place at the time. I'm just a punk 12-year-old kid that shows up to watch in Nashville, and then bought 200 rounds of California Magnum paint.
Cal Mag paint, yeah. With the little camo boxes.
In the camo boxes, and then got out on the makeshift speedball field and played and got roasted. And it was eye-opening because I had seen all the macho movies and I expected to do just fine out there and didn't really understand how easy it is to get shot and how experience in paintball is the best teacher and so on and so forth. So, but that was, I'd been the kids running around with the toy guns in my neighborhood when I was growing up, and I shot you first, you shot me first. No, it was, and so the nice thing about paintball was that I got you first, but then as I became more involved with it, it was really much more than that, and took on a life of its own. So if you had asked me back then, I would have never imagined continuing to play as an adult. But I would say that it's been a defining thing for me in my life. I mean, my whole family plays. My two youngest are almost 9 and almost 10, and they're just chomping at the bit to play. You know, my daughter plays in the Saber Wolves with me. My oldest daughter plays in the Saber Wolves with me, and she's really come into her own and is continuing to improve. It's a great sport that anybody can get something wonderful out of. And I think the Saber Wolves were really proud to be good ambassadors for it. That's what we want to be.
Oh, absolutely. I've been a huge fan of the Saber Wolves as well. Like, I mean,
thank you.
Like for me, like having this jersey sent to me was one of the greatest honors of all time, because I remember back in the late 80s and the early 90s, I was reading the magazines and I was watching how Bob Long did this. And Iron Man did that. But it's sort of like, so when they were like, hey, here's a jersey and hat and whatnot. And they, Dirk actually lent me one of his prototype tiger stripe push mask.
Oh, wow.
So I could do a photo shoot and stuff for things. I had to send the mask back, but they said keep the jersey. I was just like,
nice.
So I get excited easy.
The name is so legendary, though. I mean, it's really something. I mean, the big three, I think, from back in the late 80s, early 90s, you've got the Aftershock, had been the Lords of Discipline, then became Aftershock, and then the All-Americans, of course, that came out of Latrobe. And then clearly the Iron Man were the big three that everyone was going for. And I actually met the old OG Iron Man team at the 1990 Masters. I think it was the 90 Masters right after the autococker had come out, the original. And I had one of the first autocockers. It was the first semi-automatic gun that I owned after my prototype Ranger. Right. And then I'm not a tech guy. I've never been. I want to be able to plug something up and have it work. And so obviously the autocockers, I mean, give me an autococker and you get a blender. And so I could not figure out how to get to work and went to the Masters, and the OG Iron Men were trying to help me tech it. And of course I was just starstruck because it was Iron Man,
Right.
Very cool. Very cool.
So are you still bad with autocockers?
Yes. Yeah. Well, here's a story, a true story.
All right.
The Saber Wolves, way back in the day, the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, we were a very good 5-man team, and that's really where we were born and bred and how we came up. And 5-man never really had the prestige or the good stigma that 10-man had. Right. But we could play 5-man against anybody, and we were really good. Right. And as we were coming up through at the time, kind of the oldest 5-man tournament circuit in the world, the Mid-South Paintball Association, we had been winning MSPA tournaments over and over and over again. And then we were offered a sponsorship for from War Game Products for using the autocockers. Now, I was the only person on the Saber Wolves that did not have an autococker. All the other guys shot autocockers. I had an automag. You know, it was the autocockers versus the automags. And I was good with an automag. If you put an autococker in my hand, you got a blender.
Right.
And so they came to Robin Adcock, who's the captain of the Saber Wolves, and said, you know, we'll offer you the sponsorship to shoot autocockers, but you have to shoot them 100%, right? We can't have one of your guys shooting an automag. And Robin refused. He's like, Justin's not going to shoot an autococker and be in any way effective on the field. So anyway, that was, it made me feel good that my team thought highly enough of me to not boot me off so that they could get the sponsorship.
Right.
But, you know, with the mechanical revival that's going on right now, Spencer and the guys from Fight Club put on their big 10-man tournament, I guess in 2017, I think is when they did, April of 2017. And they were advertising that it was going to be mechanical only. And I didn't know that GOG had the Enemy and some of these guns that were truly mechanical. And so the Saber Wolves decided to enter a team there. And I went and bought an autococker and went out to my local field paintball command that's here on the North Shore of New Orleans, Louisiana. And so I bought an autococker, a nice autococker, and went out to play with it for a day. And by the end of the day, I had a not working hunk of metal. And like my best friend in the world, Bill Oshbacher, is like, Justin, come on, really? And that's just me and autocockers. So they're great guns. So don't get me wrong. I acknowledge they're phenomenally good guns, and they have a kind of a tinkering appeal to them, but not for me. Oh, yeah. See, I got to tell you, they're beautiful. I see them, and I think to myself, why not me? You know, why not me?
Well, I'll tell you, the trick with an autococker, and this takes a little time, is that you actually have to time it for the player. So if you're shooting I'm so not professional. If you're shooting an autococker, you can make it snappy, or you can make it very, what's the word I'm looking for? Gas efficient. So you have to learn how to completely let go of the trigger and pull the trigger completely. That's the trick. Now, with some people, like my best friend Jimmy, they can't get the full out and in, and so they'll start chopping it. So what you want to do is you want to time it tight, right? You want to time it tight so that you lose a little efficiency, but the trigger is a lot snappier, and you want it to get that click. So it's not that you can't use autocockers, it's you just haven't had one timed for you.
Yeah, I can tell you a lot. So I can accept that as somebody that does not know autocockers. I can accept that may be true. I've shot so many autocockers, and after the guys on my team would get their guns rolling, and I would listen to like Jeff Ogborn, who was just a beast with his autococker, and Bill Oshbacher, who is still with the Wolves, a beast with an autococker, and they could get it timed, and they really understood the way that they worked.
Right. And
they would get theirs rocking, and that chugga, 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 that really neat sound that they have. I mean, they're cool guns. And absolutely, they just have that. They're awesome. And I would kind of get that autococker and they'd be like, "Oh man, can I shoot it?" And they'd be like, "No, absolutely not. Don't touch my gun."
So my brother has a joke about this, and basically he says that the autococker only sounds like one other thing, and that's bed springs. So if you hear that noise, it's either an autococker or bed springs. Either way, you're getting. You know what I mean?
I'm with you.
So that's the only two things that make that noise. So, all right. So we got a couple people commenting, and says Saber Wolves was a good team. I think it's still a great team. And somebody said here, timing and string strength per individual. Totally agree with that.
What you were saying.
And a good team, great team. There we go. Somebody else commented as well.
Thank you.
Just popping those up a little bit. If when you're watching on the live stream, the people at home, if you don't click to give StreamYard authority to use your information, all I see is Facebook user. So if you want to see your name up, because this is all going to get posted to YouTube, if you want to see your name up, make sure you just click on the link. And that way, when I post something up, I can do like this with Christopher Struck. And it says Autocockers are so fancy looking. So thank you, Chris. Anyway, speaking of Automags, though, I have been doing a lot of talking with Tim Glavin. And Tim Glavin is the man that's in charge of selling Automags now. Did you know that they're now selling Automags again?
I did. All right, somebody's printing something behind me. So yes, I did know that they were selling Automags, and I guess right around the same time I had been shooting an Enemy, and then Shocker came out with the CVO, the mechanical version.
Yes.
Which we jumped on, and I love that gun.
Yes.
Really do like it. And so then when my old guys from Adrenaline announced that they were going to come out with an Adrenaline version, I mean, I was just a hog heaven. So that's what we've been shooting on the Saber Wolves. We were fortunate enough to be offered a sponsorship with them, which we jumped on. I mean, the opportunity to have our own gun. And we're loving that gun. I'm absolutely loving it.
Right. And those things are so gorgeous. Like I was horsing around with them at World Cup, and I was horsing around with them at Vegas just recently as well. And they're just, I was never a Shocker fan back in the day, like the old shoebox ones, but these new ones, I have to say, are probably some of the best looking guns that are currently on the market as far as stylistically designed. At least it just speaks to me. One of my co-teammates on the Denver Expendables, Thomas Boot, he actually bought one of the slate gray ones. And we were all in the booth at Vegas. And I said, but you got to put the purple kit on it. So they actually took the slate, like the dark metallic gray, and then they put the purple parts kit on it. So the whole thing was so gorgeous. I totally want that gun. Unfortunately, right now, purchasing a new gun for me is not in the cards. Yeah.
The Adrenalines are nice. You have to wait for them. I mean, but when you get them, you get a real supercar, so to speak.
Right.
They shoot beautifully. They look beautifully. And the tech support that we've gotten from the guys over at GOG, Hans, Russell, was just spectacular. At the World Cup, they were really, really good with helping us out.
All right, so this is not the old Steve McGuire. This is his son. I'm not sure who said that, but yeah, this is the old Steve McGuire. But there's other McGuires in paintball. Yeah. And then I'm not sure who said this, but haha, push paintball rules. These podcast chats are a great way to pass the time away, just knowing the Wolves are my brothers. So
thank you.
Yeah. So like I said,
I got to say that the neat thing about, to me, has always been the people. I mean,
right.
Paintballers are so cool. Everywhere that you go, there are people that play paintball. This fantastic sport kind of draws us all in. We all get something from it that's sort of the same, but is individualized for each of us. And you go out to a big game or a walk-on day or a tournament, and you have such a diverse group of people, but they're all cool. I mean, there are always these rogue people that you wouldn't want to have anything to do with. Those are so few and far between, and not nearly what you kind of run into in the general population. So, and it's not, I think somebody, I think John has been putting together the paintball documentary, and I've seen some of the clips from the old school when paintball was really trying to come out of the woods. Well, maybe not even out of the woods, but actually get some footage, and lawmakers and public figures were against it. And the things that they said about it. And I tell you, in my own family, my father, who continues to play paintball, he's almost 78. He continues to play paintball every weekend. His parents, my grandparents on his side, were just vehemently opposed to paintball. And it's interesting how far it's come, and the image difference, and how it's never been anything like what that kind of thought was about the way that people were to play it.
It's quite possibly the greatest group of people I've ever come across in my life. And I've done a little bit of traveling. Now, to be fair, once I got sucked into this community, I stay in this community. Yeah, I I couldn't agree with you more. And it's amazing how life-changing it can be. Like, I don't know if you've followed much recently, because I mean, there's been a lot going on, but I've been doing a lot of things with the Ali Remembered Foundation, which is paintball's first nonprofit organization dedicated to the prevention of domestic violence. Yeah, because I'll talk to you more about it later. But yeah, Andy Starrett, his daughter was murdered about 3 years ago. And because he's an old school paintballer, Thomas Boot and a couple of his friends brought him in. They created the Denver Expendables just to help him get through. And not only that, the young gentleman, for lack of a more polite word or aggressive word, that murdered Andy's daughter, he fled to Mexico. The team actually banded together and tracked him down and had authorities bring him back.
Wow.
And so the trial was supposed to happen in a couple weeks. So this is all still going on. But Andy's daughter was so looking towards helping people, and Andy needed so much of an outlet, it birthed the Ali Remembered Foundation, which is actually a 501c3, like official organization. So yeah, anybody out there that's listening, go to the Ali Remembered Foundation and don't hesitate to donate. They are helping a lot of people in Denver right now with regards to all this craziness going on with the virus and stuff. I'll throw a ticker on it in a minute, but yeah, that's the paintball community right there. Because I mean, how great horrible story, but how great a story is that your friends band together, create a team, help you achieve like finding this individual, and then on top of that, create this worldwide movement that helps stop domestic violence. Like, you may not have heard about the Ali Remembered Foundation currently, but you will be, because the OG Ironmen are definitely on board. One of the things we're going to be doing at not only NXL events, but ICPL events, is we're going to be doing the Pit Pals program. And that is bringing kids, some survivors of domestic violence, but just kids in general. And they're going to come to the pits of the pro teams, if the pro team is willing, and just help clean pods and help wipe hits and just generally be involved. Virtue's a major sponsor for it. GI Sports just got involved. So many other ones, but they're going to be given like a little bit of swag and stuff like that. And it's just going to have like a young kid. So let's say 10 to 16-ish. I don't know exactly. You can get all the details on the Ali Remembered Foundation website, but it's called the Pit Pals program, and it's going to be on the ICPL as well. So something that you might want to think about for the Saber Wolves when things start getting rolling, but just having a kid along just for the fun of it. Yeah.
And I think that sounds fantastic. I mean, that's I'm not familiar with that organization right off the top of my head, but it sounds like exactly like what you said. Out of tragedy, the paintball community kind of came together and turned it into something that, I don't want to say positive, but they did their best to kind of try to make amends with it and try to come to grips with it and help people heal as best as possible.
Well, the truth of the matter is you're 100% right. It is a positive. I mean, I never personally met Ali myself, but she's probably one of the single most important people in my life now, and I've never met her, nor will I ever, because she created such a positive influence. That's part of the reason why I was able to go to Vegas and Chicago and Florida, and that's the whole reason I was there, was not just for the podcast and not just to play, but I'm helping to promote the Ali Remembered Foundation as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. That's how that's going. How cool is that, though, right? Like, I mean, it's horrible situation bred this incredible organization, and there's now, like, the Harrogate Mafia in England are currently rocking the Ali Remembered Foundation logos on their jerseys, as are some of the Destiny teams, and like, it's a big deal, and the ripple effect is massive. Now, I wish it had never happened. The original incident never happened, obviously, but what has bloomed from it of this horrible situation, what's bloomed is fantastic, and it's just going to keep getting bigger. So,
and I think that's the paintball community. I mean, every time that there's something that happens, people in the community of paintball step forward. Some really smart people, really caring people that play paintball, and they manage to kind of, because this is a sport that kind of binds us. It bounds us together and brings us in, and we kind of share those feelings. I think about the Veterans Militia. That was a organization that I was really not familiar with. And then we played them at the Iron City Classic, and I mean, how fantastic, how phenomenal an organization is that brings these veterans together and gives them kind of an outlet and therapy and people to talk to, and kind of uses paintball to be a way to help people get over the difficult times for those that have served and sacrificed for our country.
No, absolutely.
Huge positive. So,
well, do you know what they did in Vegas? Okay, so I'm going back a little bit for a second, but right before Vegas, a friend of mine, Rosa, out of Kansas, let me know about this kid who calls himself the Armored Car. And I believe his name is Ryan, and he's like, I think 12 years old, 13 years old, something like that. And he wears a full flak vest when he plays, like legit Army surplus flak vest. And he'll carry extra pods for people. And so he goes out running around. So people are short on paint. He'll hand them pods of paint. And if somebody needs to go for a run for the flag, this little kid just goes after it. Well, he's a little bit socially challenged at times, I guess, is the most descriptive way of putting it. And it is what it is. And some of the kids at school were bullying him, beating, and I believe he got a bit of a beating. But he was playing dodgeball and he hit one of the kids that were one of the tougher or stronger, and they beat him up a little bit, and it really racked on him. And so Rosa told me about this, so I immediately got on the horn with Andy and whatnot, and we all agreed this won't work. So when we were in Vegas, a lot of our sponsors reached out and donated like new goggles and paintball pants and all these, and gloves from I believe it was HK Army, and like it was GI Sports that gave pants, and it was Virtue that gave goggles. Like, I mean, forget all politics. All it went out the window to help this little kid. And then Andy and myself, we live streamed the whole thing. Team Dynasty signed a poster for him live while he was watching at the paintball field, because Rosa was holding the card for him. So also AC Dallas, I believe it was, they all signed stuff. But the Veteran Militia, they were walking by and we talked to them, and they gave like an inspirational sort. So the Veterans Militia, they were just like, kid being bold, yeah, let's get in on this. And the whole paintball community, like, we spent like 15-20 minutes just walking up and down, and people were just jumping in, and it didn't matter who you are, what your sponsor was, anything. Everybody just wanted to help this kid, the Armored Car. So yeah, I love this community so much.
It is very cool.
Now, I have to ask, so you've been playing for a long time, longer than me, long enough to call me a punk. And that's saying something. Not many people can do that. But if you had to go back to your favorite playing experience, like, is there a favorite tournament that you had?
A favorite tournament? You mean one individual?
Or a game? Like, yeah, is there one moment when you think about your paintball experience? Is there one moment that just stands out more than the rest? I know there's a lot, because that's just a blur. Believe me, I know. But is there one moment?
There are so many. I mean, I'll tell you that when I was growing up in the Mid-South and just playing local ball, the MSPA was kind of, people that the teams that played in the MSPA, those were the local pros.
Right.
And so when we won our first MSPA tournament, that was almost unbelievable. It just didn't process. It was like it was a dream. And then to win the series championship was the same way. I mean, the way that felt I remember that with the guys that I've grown up playing with. It was just something truly special.
Now, was that Saber Wolves?
Yeah, that was the original 5-man Saber Wolves team, and then winning events with them was really great. We were the first team to sweep the Zap Amateur Open in 1997. We played the 5 and 10 man. That was really one of our first 10-man tournaments. We didn't have a 10-man team at that time. We came up with another local team, and that was truly something special. But I've played so many tournaments. I've been overseas to play tournaments, and I've been fortunate enough to be on winning teams more than most. Certainly not as much as some, but I'll tell you that if I had to say my favorite event, I'm going to say event.
Sure.
The old school Knoxville Indoor Championships.
Okay.
Was such a fun event. It was one of the first times before the Saber Wolves formed, when I was playing with a local team. Then the Slime Balls, the team that my father and I started, we played that event. But it was the first time playing against the pros of the day, meeting some of them, seeing them play on this big. For anybody's not familiar with it, it was a huge rodeo arena. And
cool.
Convert it to, they would put a net over the whole thing. And so it was one of the first tournaments. It was completely indoors. First tournament where there was spectator cheering, and you couldn't stop coaching. So there was coaching, but on the flip side, the other team would have people trying to give you false information. It was pure chaos. It was so much fun. Never won it. Never won that event. It's one of the only Mid-South tournaments that we never won, but it was so much fun. We always made the after rounds. We always made the elimination rounds, and then would step on our you-know-whats and have a bad game. But that event was really a lot of fun. There are so many. I mean, it would be hard for me to say that there was one place. I have fond memories about the original, Rennick Miller's original hyperball field with the big tree in the middle. The original hyperball was big. You could run. I mean, ever since I've started playing, I liked breakouts where I had to run, where I had to haul ass to make a bunker. And then the game was going to be a 10-minute chess match. Could I make a crawl? Could I shoot this person out? Did I do as good a job as walking the field as the other team's field walker? All of that kind of stuff. Did we prepare well enough? Could we communicate well enough? I mean, so many different things. And even if you were losing a game, you could figure out a way to bring it back from the brink. So there have been a lot of moments. But for event, I would say the Knoxville Indoor. And then for field, I would say Rennick Miller's original tree hyperball field. And then for game or tournament, I would say the very first MSPA that I won with my original Saber Wolves teammates. That just it stands out. It's very special.
That's awesome. Now, how many of the original 5 are still on the team, other than you?
Well, I'm actually, so the funny thing is, I'm not truly one of the original 5-man Saber Wolves. So
okay,
there's only one original Saber Wolf that's still playing on this team, and that is Bill Oshbacher, my Anna's godfather, one of my best friends in the world. I really consider him a brother. Right. But so the way that it worked is the original Saber Wolves were the Slime Balls, and then the 3 guys, Robin Adcock, Jeff Ogwarn, and Bill Oshbacher, decided they wanted to be more serious, and they did not expect me to leave my dad. And so they broke away from the Slime Balls and then played an MSPA tournament while I was in college as the Saber Wolves, and they took second place to the team that had been winning before we came on with. That was the Darksiders, and so at that tournament you had the original Saber Wolves, and then after that tournament, Bill called me up and he's like, "Man, we didn't think that you'd want to join us, but we need somebody for the next event." I'm like, "I'm in. That sounds fantastic. This is great. Let's get more serious." And so I'm actually not. I missed the very first tournament that the Saber Wolves ever played, so I'm not truly an original Saber Wolf. But so Bill Oshbacher, he holds the reins. But the funny thing about it is, so the new version, the 10-man Saber Wolves that we're clearly now focusing on. So we got back together for the Woodsball World Cup that Jerry hosted in June or July of 2016, whenever it was that he put that on. And I think it was October, November of 2015, he posted a Facebook message. And I called him up that night and said Saber Wolves would come. And he was like, "Oh, that's great. You guys are still playing." I was like, "No, we don't have Bediah, but we will." So I got on the horn, text messaged and called and Facebook messaged everybody that I knew from the old Saber Pups and Team Extreme, and the guys that had been around the Mid-South that I still kept in touch with, again from paintball, the paintball community. Because
Right.
though for us, I played my last tournament in July of 2003. Nothing against X-ball. I just didn't very much for X-ball. It wasn't for me. And so I walked away, and for the very first time, I didn't miss it. I missed what we had, but I kind of considered that dead.
Right.
And so when the Woodsball World Cup came up, I was like, man, I'm not going to miss a chance to do this again. This is, 250-yard long fields out in the woods, balls limited to 10 per second. I'm in. Let's do this. And so I called up a bunch of guys, and then we put together a team and went up there and played and just had a ball. And we were actually – the Bad Company ended up winning that event. Our last two games of the prelims – so I don't know if Tom is going to see this, but our last two games of the prelims were against Bad Company. We crushed them. We were really on fire, and we were playing good. And we're all woods ball players. We're old school players. We know how to play in the woods. We're good. Right. And so this was all in the woods, and we were on fire and really rocking. And so, during the event, they changed the format, and we all had flights to make back in New York, and we realized that we weren't going to be able to play to the end of the event. So we got together and said, guys, this is what we came out for, fun. And we all decided as a team that we would walk away. So we left the event after the prelims because we played our 12 games and we couldn't stay any longer. So I think Black Sunday fell into the semifinals as we left. We gave our spot to them, and then we left. And Bad Company ended up winning the event. And they were the last two games that we won. Tom was like, "Thank God y'all left because we didn't want to play you again." But from that, there were no 10-man events. There was none of this classic paintball that there is now. And so then the second event was the Fight Club 10-man in April, which was really a lot of fun. And it was still old school on Renix hyperball fields, the Zipper field, which is one of my favorite fields, the Snake field, which is fantastic. And so we played that. And then from there, I think Tim Montresor really came up with the idea for what became the Iron City Classic. So we have played every Iron City Classic and love it. And that's really kind of, I think all of those things together kind of gave rise to this resurgence that we're now enjoying and this continuing to snowball. And yes, I think it will continue to snowball because it gives those of us that really are not, I mean, look at my father. My father's 78. He can't run around on the X-ball fields. These athletes, these guys that are really great athletes that can do this crazy stuff on X-ball. My father can't compete with them on X-ball, but he still loves to play competitive paintball. And so this gives us all an opportunity to play really good old-fashioned competitive paintball where you don't necessarily have to be some phenomenal world-class athlete because you can make the game what you need it to be in order to succeed. You don't have to be – I mean, look at Aftershock came out and they won the 2019 ICPL series, and then they managed to not even make the cut in the 2020 Tampa. There's so much good talent and people coming back out of the woodworks to play, and it's so much fun, so much fun.
It is. I can't wait. A couple things. Did you know that the ICC actually sold out in like 3 minutes this year?
Yes.
Like last year was 20 minutes. That blew my mind. 3 minutes.
Everybody was waiting. It
was like 20 minutes. It's like smash that buy button.
I'll tell you though that what Tim did this year was just give first dibs to the teams that had made the cut. I thought that was really smart, and I supported that. I told Tim I thought that was the right thing to do, and to really keep it competitive and to give people an incentive for doing well and allowing those teams that do make the cut to get back and guarantee themselves a spot.
Right. I understand that everybody wants to get a chance to play, and that's great. But I really do think that there are certain teams like Saber Wolves, OG Ironmen, Misfits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I do think that there are certain teams that need to get first priority. First priority is a bad choice of words. It's just not an event if they're not playing. Do you know what I mean? And would hate for, let's say that the pro teams from the ICPL, because they're mechanical teams, they should be able to play if they choose to. If they choose not to, then that's their choice. But they should have the opportunity to make sure they play because they are part of the draw. They're famous people unto themselves. Like whether you want to appreciate it or not, you are one of the most famous mech players in paintball right now. Hands down. Like you're the team captain of the Saber Wolves. That is a position of prestige. whether you like it or not.
Okay, I don't like it, but if you say so, I'll just accept with it. I don't lose any sleep over the things that I can't control.
Right. I feel the same way about the podcast. I don't know if you saw it, but I was just going through the stats prior to this episode, and I posted a picture of all the countries where people are listening to me right now, like or have downloaded the podcast and things like that. And it's kind of mind blowing. Actually, 1 second. I wonder if I can. Yeah, let's see if I can do this here so I can show you what I'm talking about. All right. All right, watch this. So that is everywhere in the world that my podcast gets downloaded and listened to.
Wow. That is incredible.
I'm just
congratulations.
Well, thank you. But I feel the same way you do because I'm the popular unknown. Like, do people know of me? Yes. I have never made a single podium in my paintball career ever. Not one trophy, not one second place, not one third place. I have never won a single tournament since I started playing. And that's because I'm in Canada, outside of Toronto. There were certain core teams, but the big players were always Northern California, New York. Like those were where the big meccas were. And what with me being a semi-nice guy, when teams would come up, I'd get a chance to play as an alternate. Well, you can't have a good team with alternates that you've never played before and win. Sure. So I had all these great experiences. I played with all these great people, and I am not complaining for 1 second of not winning. That's not what this is about. But here I am now, and just like you, it's like people know who we are, and I don't know why.
In the Mid-South, back in the old, there's this whole generation that didn't play OG tournament paintball like what we played back in the day. And in the Mid-South, back in the OG days, everybody knew who the Saber Wolves were, and the community was just so tight knit. It was cool, and it never really occurred to me. And then when we showed up for, I guess it was 2018 ICC, still nobody knew who we were. But we played very well, and we won every game in the prelims. We were the only team to win every game in the prelims. And I remember sitting around kind of calculating scores and trying to figure out who we were going to play and how this was going to work out. And everybody was going, who are the Saber Wolves? Who is this team? And we just don't think about it that way. I mean, for us, it really is, people ask from time to time, it really is to us much more of a family. Right. And the experience that we get from going to these events, don't get me wrong, we want to win, and we play hard to win, but we don't want to win hard enough to where we're going to bend rules and cheat. We're gonna, if somebody beats us, we're going to give them a high five and say, look, you beat us, and we're going to be intense, and we're going to come out hard, and we're going to play our style. And I think one of the things that drives me crazy is I know that we're good enough to win every event. I'm a perfectionist by nature. When we don't win, I'm always like, oh, we could have done this differently, blah, blah, blah. So we're always striving for that perfection. At the same time, we're spread out over 7 different states. We can't practice. We don't practice. None of us want to practice. We just want to play, and we want to have that experience. So we show up. We know that we're never going to be as good as we could be if we practice, but we accept that. Right. We've got a bunch of guys and a gal that to us are much more of a family. And I think any of us would rather lose with this team than to win anywhere else, because when we get together, we just have so much fun. We rented a house for the World Cup. We hung out together, such fantastic memories. And it was nice to win the mounds, but we would have still left having a great time. Right. Even if, and so for us, that's been the way that is. I think that we've managed, since this resurgence has started, we've managed to win our fair share of events, which we're very, I think, fortunate enough to be good enough to do. It's going to be difficult to keep that going because there's so many good teams out. You know, I want, and they get better. And they get better. And so I want to play against Dynasty. I want to play against these guys. When I was growing up, when we got on the field with them, I mean, the last time that I took the field with Dynasty, they rolled over us in like a minute and a half. And so I liked going on the field with them and playing. And I understand that there are teams that are looking at us that way. it's a little bit sobering to imagine. It's hard for me to say, man, that's us. But it's an honor, and most importantly, I want us to be somebody that promotes the sport well. If the mechanical format continues to do well, and we can be a part of that, then I think we've done what we want to do. I got to give a shout out to Tom and the job that he's done with the ICPL.
Tom
Really,
Cole?
I'm very happy with how those events are going. They're not perfect, but they're getting better.
Right.
I like the emphasis on penalties. I mean, I'm somebody that's like, penalize heavy. Please penalize heavy. Make teams play straight. Make us play paintball. And I'm a strong proponent of that. And from time to time, we'll get, like, when we showed up to play we played the Division III. Some of my guys entered the Division III X Ball, which just makes me cringe. But they wanted to do it, so they entered it and played. And right out of the gate, they were getting penalized left and right. And I was like, guys, this is not the classic format. They're throwing penalties, and you've got to understand what's happening. And it's not that my guys were not cheating. It's a different style, and that's what I want to see happen. I want to see that, so that the players police themselves.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Now, I have a question.
Yeah.
As much as, like, with what we were just talking about, if you had to pick your favorite team to play against, who would that be? Like, who gives you the biggest, like, who do you look forward to playing the most? And I'm not saying they have to be the best team, or like, just because there's always that one team where you step on the field, it's like, those guys, I want you, those guys. You mean, so who do you look forward to the most?
From now?
Yeah, now.
I mean, there's so many great. I'm going to give a shout out to Will Oreo and his GZ Gold guys.
Yeah.
I love those guys. I mean,
they're hilarious.
They're so much fun. We've been neck and neck with them ever since this whole resurgence started. They're getting better. Will is really smart on the field. He's put together a good squad, and I like playing against against teams that I really do like. If I respect them, and I'd rather play against somebody that if I lose, I don't mind losing to. There are old school teams, and I'm not going to name names, but there are old school teams that I don't like losing to, because I don't feel like they played me straight. And so if somebody beats me, I'm going to give them a high five and be okay with that. So I would rather play against teams that I like.
Right.
I'll tell you that if I could answer this question, and it's anybody from all walk of paintball for forever.
Right.
I'm going to say the old school Strange with Paul and BJ and Mike Carthy and those guys.
Nice.
I loved watching them play. They were so technical. I felt like their style of paintball was one of the most pure styles of paintball that I've ever seen. They were just really good technicians. I would watch them set up moves on the field, and it didn't matter if they were up 10-on-4 or 10-on-3. They wouldn't get stupid. Every one of their players would continue to close out. And what I tell my guys, tighten the noose. And they were such good technicians, and they developed, for reasons that I don't quite understand, this reputation for being not aggressive. But it's just that they didn't flood forward like a tidal wave. They were just slow and steady. They were like a steamroller hitting you. And so I really have the utmost respect for those guys. I always really liked watching them play. And I would love to play against them over and over and over again. I think I would continue to get better and better and better. So I will say, though, that Dynasty, like I mentioned Dynasty earlier, and they, of course, won the ICC last year. Those guys have been in it for so long. And I played against them a couple of times when they were the Iron Kids and then Cat Factory before kind of coming up through the mix. And they've really lived the paintball dream, I think, as much as anybody could. And I have a lot of respect to them. I've had the opportunity to hang out with a couple of them from time to time and gotten to know them a little bit as people. And then I've watched, they're all so good. Oliver has developed a reputation over time as being maybe the greatest paintball player for all time. But I'm going to throw out that I think Ryan Greenspan has been so consistent over such a long period of time. I think he's in that argument and in that strata. So you've got this group of kids, now grown men, that have been professional paintball players, but it's like lightning in a bottle with those guys. They were all growing up together in the same area. They were all extremely talented, and they put forth the work ethic that was necessary for them to become successful in the highest rungs, and then they've managed to maintain it. Very, very difficult to do. So I have a lot of respect for those guys too.
You know who I always liked as a player. I mean, I've always been a big Lasoya fan and things like that. As far as because I've watched Lasoya play, and it was just mind blowing what he would do when he was on. But I believe it was Dan Bonebreak, and back when autocockers were coming out, Dan Bonebreak was playing front, but he was still using a pump when everybody else was using semis because that's all he wanted and that's all he needed. And back when autocockers and automags were ruling the day, Dan Bonebreak had a pump sniper, and he was playing front pump sniper. And now he may not be playing that much anymore, and I'm not sure why he stopped playing. I mean, we all have our things. But that being said, Dan was just how can you not love a guy that's playing pump when everybody else is rocking semis and you're winning? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So I think it was the UK Predators that showed up to one of the Lively events shooting the Sterling pumps. And pretty much everybody else had already made the switch over to semis, which at that time was the PMI 3 and the SMG 68. The PMI 3 was from PMI, SMG 68 from Tippmann, which kicked like a 12 gauge, and then the Golden Eagle from Brass Eagle, which I only saw once or twice, but not many people were using.
As much as I loved old Brass Eagle gear, I did not like those Golden Eagles.
Well, it was a block of steel.
Well, that and the very it was super unreliable. It was the body was this long, but the barrel was only this long, and then you only had a 3.5 ounce tank, like steel tank, and then so if you wanted to, you had to put on your 7 ounce or your 20 ounce or 10 ounce. So you were holding this giant thing. And it only had a barrel that was this big.
And it was tall. So you remember it had that V-shaped, so you would have to hold it. Your handle would be down at your belly button level so that you could sight over the top of the barrel to shoot.
Right. I hated that thing. I hated it so much. And the funny thing was, or one of the funniest things is, the very first one that I ever saw, so I was playing with a team called the Cannonballers back then. And we were all very excited because we heard about this true new semi-auto coming out. Because back then there was only the three. There was the Tippmann, and I'm not talking about the SMG with the side with the stripper clips, but
or the double actions like the Barracuda and the ones that
because count. No, they don't count. But the actual true semi-autos, right. There was the PMI 3, which later became the VM 68.
Right.
There was the Tippmann. It was a 68 Special.
68 Special. You're right.
Special. It ran on liquid CO2, and then there was this Golden Eagle that was coming out, and somebody's commented out the Palmer's Hurricane was also one of the first semis. Yes, but these were more mass manufactured, and Palmer's is more of a small run, limited custom. In any case, sorry, I think that was probably Richard Wilcox that mentioned that he likes following us, and he likes very, very pro Palmer's, as he should be. Palmer's rocks.
True semi-automatic.
Right. So we all got excited because that was coming in. So our whole 25-man challenge team stuffed into this tiny little paintball shop back in the early 90s. And we started unboxing it, and it came out. We're all like, ooh, ah. And I will never forget this as long as I did. And then, so we pulled out the gun, and we're all just like, ha ha. And it's like, yes. And then we pulled out the tank that came with it. It was this tiny little tank. We sort of looked at it, we went, that could be replaced. And then we pulled out the hopper. It was one of those little 45 round Zap hoppers. We pulled that out, and I swear to God, the guy just sort of looked at it, just threw it over his head. We didn't even comment. It was just like, that's gone. And then we pulled out the barrel. It was like this big, and we're like, what the heck? So anyway, we put it all together, and there was a little range inside of it. And I do not know how this happened because the barrel screwed on. But I swear to you, this happened. And we're all just sort of like looking at this thing, and we loaded up. We put a 90 round view loader on it, and we're about to shoot down the pipe into the bucket to collect the paint. And the very first shot, and the barrel flew off. And we all went, that's it. It sucks. It went back in the box, and none of us ever touched one since.
I totally believe it.
But it was the barrel literally flew off the gun. Now, I do not know how that happened. I couldn't tell you, but that when that first came out, it was like the Holy Grail. We're all like, ha ha ha, you know. The tank goes, eh, and the hopper, shing, and the barrel's like, beep, that's it. It sucks.
No, that makes perfect sense. It was just a big block of metal, and I think the lines were milled into it so that there were no breaking lines or anything like that. It was huge and heavy and awkward to hold. But the UK Predators were the pump thing. You know, that first generation, not including the Automag or the Autococker, because the Automag was actually one of the first.
Right.
But that first generation was not particularly accurate and not efficient. So you couldn't figure out where your balls were actually going to end up when you pulled the trigger. And so the UK Predators won one of the lively events shooting the Sterling.
Right.
And then everybody showed up with Sterlings for a while, but then you had the Illustrator that came out, the F1 Illustrator, which was the first really light and kind of practical.
I had one. Yep.
And then the Automag, the first generation, of course, Swarm showed up, I think, at the 91.
It could be. I know Swarm was one of the very few. I believe Swarm was the factory team of.
But the Masters at that time was held at Hermitage Landing in Nashville, and that was basically just a yacht club, and he would rent out the whole land, and it was woods. And we played it one year, and I came across a pavilion with a concrete picnic table in the middle of the field, and there were no bunkers. That's the stuff that was trees. So when Swarm showed up with their Automags, just and tons of paint for back then, they just sprayed over everybody, and that really changed the dynamic. At that point, then there was this. So like Dan, you were mentioning, was playing in the front. But at that point, there wasn't.
Actually, I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned this. I think you're referring to Marty from the Owen, and I could be right. Maybe I'm not Dan Broker. Maybe it was Marty Bush. My apologies.
Maybe
it's going back, and I'm getting up there in years. There's been so many people, but yeah, it could have been Marty Bush on the OG on the original Ironman team, because that actually sounds a little more accurate. I'll have to look it up now. So, but yeah. Anyway, sorry, didn't interrupt. Go ahead.
No, just that right around that time, there was a big kind of swap, or there's a back and forth battle over whether or not, because the argument with the semi-automatics was they're not accurate. The pumps were accurate, but even with the auto firing where you could hold the trigger down and pump, only person that I ever saw there was a kid that played in Nashville for the team called the Music City Hooters. He and his father made pumps.
Right.
And he was accurate with a pump and could, on the auto trigger, it was unbelievable what that kid could do. But then as soon as they started getting accurate, of course, with the ability to fire more paint and suppress, then the semi-automatics took over, and that was the end of that. And of course, then electronics and all the things and the way that went. I think for a while, the technology in paintball, there's always been an arms race, and there always will be with like that. The problem became that there was really no way to govern it and to try to maintain the essence of the game. And so everybody was trying to create something that would really shoot fast. I remember when I had my first New York Extreme Matrix, and that thing just blew me away as fast as it would shoot. And before that, I was shooting Angels, and I had a number of custom Angels and really liked those guns. And but when the Halo came out and the faster feeding loaders and then electronics, and then of course the chips that just would not stop shooting, it kind of took on a life of its own.
Right. Now, two things. First of all, I do have an idea about how to govern guns and their speed. We'll get to that in a second. But second of all, so you've had all these guns. Do you still have a big collection?
I do.
Now, do you have one that you love more than any of the others?
Yeah. So I'm going to say two.
Okay.
I won a number of events and played a number of seasons with an old Eclipse LED Angel in bonsai splash green.
Oh,
and actually, there's a picture of that in one of the Push magazines. I had these old JT Sport gloves, and the guys from Push magazine, I'm sorry, not Push magazine, Paint magazine,
right,
came out for one of our events, and they got a picture of that, and that gun was something special. And then when the Angel LCD came out, then James Grayley and the guys from Adrenaline built me just this really nice custom multicolor rainbow Mardi Gras marble fade that I played with for a long time, and I guess I was still using all the way up until I stopped playing tournament ball. And so both of those I have very fond memories of.
Do you still have pictures of those, or do you still have them?
I still have them.
Well, if you could do me a favor, I would love it later today when you have a free moment. If you could take a picture so I could see it, because I know I have a few followers that would just love to see it. So
Absolutely.
I would love to see a picture or two of those when you get a chance. No rush. Now, going back to governing the actual speed of the guns, I have this theory, and everybody thinks I'm a little bit nuts.
Uh-oh.
But, well, no. If you take paintballs and you stack them in a tube, and it's just a straight tube, and you let them go, the fastest they can feed as per gravity is 11 balls a second.
Yeah, it's like 11.2 or something like that. So.
Right. So if you are using a hopper, even if it's agitated, as long as the paddles don't cover the hole, then at most you will get 7 to 9 balls a second, no matter what you are shooting. So no matter what gun anybody uses, as long as the paddles are flat and they don't cover the hole to push balls down.
Yeah.
So as long as it's not force fed in any way, you now regulate all the paintball guns on the field to exactly the same speed, no matter what they do to the guns.
So I'm going to say no. And I'll tell you why. Because actually this is something that my father and I strongly disagree with each other about. But one of them is that I do not have coronavirus, by the way. So
I can't catch it through the computer, so we're good.
But one of the things that really changed the electronic guns, because we all played with electronic guns that were capable of shooting. I used to see the guys with the Angels when they first came out, and they would prop their tanks up on their shoulder and then fan the trigger. Yep. And the gun would cycle, but then they would get 5 or 6 balls out before they would get paint goo. Right. And so I like where the mechanical movement is at, as long as we're using true semi-auto mechanical guns. Right. And then having the electronics with the option of an anti-chop eye to be limited at 5.5 balls per second. You don't have to shoot semi if you don't want to. You can have it on ramping or whatever you want to do. Right. And so there's a trade-off there. But I think, in my opinion, it takes skill for Danny Love to be able to shoot his autococker as fast as he can. And he's kind of the penultimate autococker person to me. There may have been some people that can wail on an autococker faster than him, but they've not made an impression like he has for me. Right. And of course, he's such a good tech wizard with the autocockers. Oh yeah, the guy's a genius. And so on one hand, I think that Danny Love with an autococker should not be handicapped if he's able to shoot his truly semi-automatic mechanical autococker as fast as his fingers are able to pull the trigger. I think that's a talent and a skill, and he doesn't need to be handicapped. Just like if somebody like Mouse from the NXL, he doesn't need to have 10-pound weights put on his ankles so that he and I get to a bunker at the same time. Right. And I'm 44, but I'm relatively fast for my old age. But even in my prime, I could not go as fast as that guy can. Right. So I am of the opinion that if you start governing the feed rate of balls into guns that don't have anti-chop eyes, your guys that have the talent of shooting faster, like I cannot sustain, like on my team, you may or may not know, but Aaron Rios on my team, he's the fastest person with a semi-automatic that I've ever seen in my life. He can sustain 13, 14 balls per second with his CVO shocker, his adrenaline shocker. It's just unbelievable, and he's got videos doing it. That's a skill. I mean, he's got. Oh no, absolutely. And so I don't. If you put a Viewloader Revolution on his CVO shocker, he's going to chop paint. And if you do the same thing to Danny Love on his autococker without an anti-chop eye, they're going to chop paint. So I'm comfortable letting the mechanical guns be the governor, because realistically speaking, one of the best things that happened for my game back in the day was the anti-chop eye, where the electronic guns were not capable of chopping a paintball. That was huge.
Right.
That was wonderful, because I hate chopping paint. That's just
Yeah. Oh, it sucks.
You play a game and you're making a great move, then all of a sudden you chop and it's like everything's kaput. And so it wasn't really the problem with electronics became when people were getting their guns to shoot 30, 35 balls per second. And it's true that the force feeds could keep up with that. But it doesn't matter to me. Nobody can shoot their guns that fast.
No.
The fastest people are sustaining 13, 14 balls per second. But you're talking about the
1%, if that.
Standard deviations above the norm. Most people are going to be like me. I can maybe sustain occasionally 6 or 7, maybe 8. I'll have moments where I'll have 2 balls that are like 15 balls per second between them in terms of rate between 2 balls, but that's so few and far between, can't sustain it.
Right.
So I'm comfortable having force feed loaders as long as the guns are as they are. I like the mechanicals being true semi-automatic and no double triggers, because they're guys, brilliant guys, that are coming out with ways to do double triggers where you can make it like an electronic.
Right.
And then I'm comfortable with the electronic guns being limited to 5.5. I think that's a nice trade-off.
Sure. And that's all great. It's just, if there was one way to get angels on the field, and there's an argument about automag and their RT triggers, because one camp will say if you tune a gun, an RT properly, you don't get that trigger bounce the same way, and you can't sweet spot it as easily. On the flip side of that, the people that are against it are saying, well, you can't use an RT because we have no way of governing it. We have no way of checking to see if you're not RTing or the pressure and whatnot. Yeah. And then there's so many people say, well, I want to play old school, but I really want my old Angel, or I really want my old Matrix, or I really want my old whatever. And this is the one way that's super simple that the ref can just look at it and go, yep, that's good, because they can look at it and they can just, all they have to do is see the pals, or they can do a quick check, and they automatically know the person's not cheating.
Sure.
So, I mean, I totally agree with what you say about you shouldn't limit people just because they're more talented. Like, bang on 100% agree with you. I'm just trying to figure out how to get a level field so that the most inexperienced referee can look at it, say, yep, you're good, you're fair, you're clean, and send it out. Because gravity by itself automatically puts everybody on relatively the same field. Yeah. Now, if it's mechanical, then that means you can't have eyes. But that's the one caveat, is once you get to the feed, once you have eyes, that gives you a bit of an advantage. But it still limits you to a maximum of, say, 7 to 9 balls a second, whatever the case may be. Like, you just won't get that overshooting no matter what happens. So it's just an idea.
It is. I think that all things considered, the group of people that want to show up with their old Matrix or old Angel is such a minority, and those guns were created for a different era. And so, you know, I've got a soft spot in my heart for the old Angels. And so I think that time has passed, and now there was this long period of time where you had a division in paintball. You had your tournament players that were playing so-called speedball.
Right.
And then you had your recreational players that would play scenario games or recreational ball, and there was really not a competition aspect. And so the classic movement as it exists now, and I kind of debate these things internally, as you can probably imagine, and try to figure out, is there a better way of doing this, and I can't think of a better way of doing this. I think Tim really hit the nail on the head when he came up with the 5.5. It's a nice trade-off. And the nice thing about the classic movement now, as you know, is that suddenly you have a natural bridge for your recreational to get into competition. I mean, back in the day, tournament paintball was kind of the end of the road, not the end of the road, but it was kind of the mountain's peak, the top of the mountain for when you got into paintball. You'd show up at your local field, you'd play paintball, you might want to enter a local tournament, you play. It's going to be the same format, the same style that the pros are playing. And then if you got better, like the Saber Wolves did back in the day, then you could start working your way up the ranks and eventually get to that point. But you didn't have to play only one format.
Right.
And so the classic format gives your recreational players an opportunity to get out and play these games in these fields, and it kind of it fills in that gap that a whole generation of paintball never knew. A whole
Right.
generation of paintball players and kids, teenagers, young adults, have never experienced. Man, I've got guys on my team that never played that. I mean, that played their first trees in a tournament with me. Right? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that?
No. I mean, I understand, but
what? You're crazy. But it's a new era now. And the nice thing about the classic movement, I don't have anything against X-Ball. I don't want to give anybody the impression that I think that X-Ball is bad. It's not right for me. I personally don't want to play X-Ball. That's just me. I like the slow and steady and sometimes intense game that's 10 minutes long, 12 minutes long, chess match on the field, 10 guys in the field, calling out codes. Can we make this crawl? What do we need to do? Adjusting people around, keeping people alive, counting up points at the end of the game, live bodies. That's what I really like. I mean, that's.
And then there's the opportunity of trick plays as well. And the Hail Marys, where it's just like all of a sudden you look at your watch. Well, not look at your watch, but you know that the time is about to go. And it's just like, screw it. We either win big or we lose big, but let's just go. You know what I mean?
There's definitely a strategy. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff that Go Sports. I mean, Go Sports has obviously worked really hard to put on a good product for the NXL. They've been doing some stuff with the ICPL. And those guys that play the NXL, they're athletes. They're very good at the sport of paintball, and they practice and they work at it. And kudos for them. I have nothing against that stuff. I've seen things like the game where I'm going to mess up on my teams, but the recent really fast game where one of the teams, I think, was it Russian Legion that came back against Edmonton Impact?
Yes, it was Russian Legion.
There's a strategy to that. And I get that the coaches that do that thing, they have to be good at the strategy of X-Ball. And I think some of my guys learned a little bit of that the last World Cup. Like, man, this might not be as straightforward as we think.
Right.
So it's all paintball. I think you play it all if you want to. If you want to come out and play competition in mechanical, play the ICPL, play the ICC. I want to see some local stuff start to come up. You know, I want to see some of these fields start to do local tournaments like it used to be back in the day.
Right.
And I think it can get back to that because there's this, what I'm calling the dark ages of paintball, where there's this separation between the two parties and not a lot of commingling, and you were one or the other. And I just don't think that's good for the sport.
No, I totally agree with you. Actually, have you heard about what the NorCal Pumpers are doing as far as tournaments go?
No.
Now, there's and hopefully somebody in the comments will pipe up and remind me, but there's a little mini series going on. And what they do is it's mechanical or pump when you show up to the tournament. And you don't show up as a team, you show up as individuals, and you all draw cards. And I believe it's 4-man teams. And so you never know who you're going to be playing with as a team. And then you guys go and have fun that way. And I think that's brilliant.
That is brilliant.
Because that prevents any one team from dominating another. You get all the social aspect of getting to know people and you know what I mean? And while, yes, it's possible you could get just while it's possible that you could just get a team that's a super powerhouse, at the end of the day, it's for fun and bragging rights. And it's not really all about winning so much as competing, which I think there's an astronomical difference between winning and competing.
Well, everybody, I mean, I've used this argument many times that back in the day, when you'd have 200 10-man teams showing up for a World Cup in Kissimmee, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that 95% of those teams really didn't have a prayer of winning.
No.
But they were flying from all over the world, and they were coming with their families, and it was the experience. I mean, they were showing up to compete and to enjoy that. And although what you're describing to me, the pump thing in NorCal, sounds cool, and I think that's a great idea, especially for getting people back into the idea of competing.
Exactly.
There's something like, for me and the Wolves, as I've mentioned, I think any of us would rather lose with this team than to win anywhere else. There's something about building a team and the friends that you have and being able to count on one person being in one spot that you know that you've played with for a year or 2 years or 3 years and that experience. And so what I would hope is that experience for the players in NorCal that you're describing will then get a taste for the competition that's really fun, and that there will be an outlet for them to actually be able to play.
Exactly.
And then they'll say, hey, we're going to form a team, come out and form a team and play an event. And these things tend to kind of work themselves out. I mean, there's so much talent, and it's hard to win a paintball tournament. It's not easy.
Oh yeah.
Paintball tournaments. Look at somebody like Dynasty, and they're kind of, to me, the penultimate example of a wildly and ultimately successful paintball team.
Right.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they've won maybe 30% of the tournaments that they've entered. I'm just pulling this out of,
right.
You kind of see their success over time and you think, oh, they've won it all. But the truth of the matter is that they've won so much, comparatively speaking. It's not easy to win paintball tournaments. There's a lot of talent out there. So to win 30% of paintball tournaments, that's an incredible accomplishment. That's very hard to do. And those guys have been that good for that long. And so locally, I think teams will start to play, and eventually this thing is going to snowball, and we're going to be back to having. I mean, look at what Tim's done with the ICC. It's incredible.
Yeah,
Tim could have 120 teams, 10-man teams. I mean, he could. That's unbelievable in this relatively short period of time. It's because there's a demand for it. People are loving it, and they're showing up and playing. And again, I think that most of the teams that show up at the ICC, they probably don't have a realistic shot of winning. But they're showing up, they're playing the fields. It's the experience with people that they know and that they enjoy being with, and that's what it's all about in the end with paintball.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. I like the idea of just being able to get and mix and mingle for fun and help with communication. And as Kathleen pointed out, and I put it up on the screen, the idea of being able to help teach them how to ref, because that's another thing. The players are also reffing themselves. So it cuts your teeth, it gets your feet wet a little bit. And it's more fun to play as a team than play with strangers. Hands down, no questions asked. But it's kind of a nice way just to start for the fun of it. Do you know what I mean? Just have a good time.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So we have been talking for almost an hour and 20 minutes. How fast does time fly?
Isn't that great? That's amazing.
Now, but I made you a promise, and I said that I would give you the opportunity to talk about things that are important to you. So is there anybody you wanted to plug? Do you want to talk about your sponsors a little bit?
I would say from a personal level that I'm just very thankful for my teammates on the Saber Wolves and all of their families. The Saber Wolves have 20 players on our roster. The roster is much deeper than that when we start to include significant others, family members, kids, these kinds of things. And we are all really one big family. I adore every one of my teammates. We've really got a very strong bond. I'm not going to mention all 20 of them by name. We've really got kind of 16 that are very active, but
right.
20 people that have jerseys. I kind of joke it's the hardest jersey to get in paintball. We don't sell merchandise. You don't get a jersey without earning it. And then once you get it, it's sort of like a Supreme Court appointment. You can retire, or you can die. But to this day, we've not had to kick anybody off, and we're just really not about that. We're very careful about who we invite on the team, and then we protect our own. So I think.
So I don't have a chance of getting one.
I will say that I'm really very honored to occasionally get contacted by people that ask about tryouts.
Right.
That's a great honor, and it really is. It's a wonderful feeling to feel like there are kids out there that are seeing us and that are asking about T-shirts or jerseys, and we're gonna see what we can do to quell some of that in the not too distant future. But to know that we're at least kind of putting forth a positive attitude and a positive feel for mechanical paintball and the sport of paintball, that feels good, and we want to keep on doing that. And so thank you to everybody for the compliments, and I personally would definitely want to thank each of my teammates and for everything that they do and for making this team what it is, because every one of them contributes, and that's important. And then, yeah, we do have, I guess, 7 official, but I would say 8 unofficial sponsors. that I do want to mention, if that's okay. GI
Oh,
Sports.
please be my guest.
I'll say that on the Saber Wolves, we're very fortunate to kind of have our pick of sponsors. We discussed long ago that we weren't going to accept sponsorships unless it was stuff that we would use anyway. We didn't want to. I didn't want to tell one of my friends and teammates that they had to use a certain mask if they weren't comfortable with that. We just want people to show up and have a good experience playing, and when we walk away, that it's good and everything on our terms. So GI Sports provides us with our paint. John Rathman and Billy Sransky and the guys with GI Sports just provide us tremendous paint. It's certainly been a big part of our winning formula, and we're very fortunate to have their support, and I thank them. Dye, we wear dye masks, and all of us wear the I-5 except for my daughter. She's got a small head, so she wears the I-4 and it fits her perfectly. And then we shoot the R2 loaders, and some of us are still shooting rotors, but we're gradually moving to the R2. I was a big fan of the rotor for the longest time. I was one of the last ones to switch over to the R2, and then I did at the World Cup and just fell in love with it. Todd Martinez and Carlos and Al Fernandez and the guys at Weapons and Raza, they make our jerseys. They've made us some really what I think are iconic, fantastic jerseys.
Oh, they are. They're wicked. I've seen them up close. Everybody
sees them and they know it's us right away. And they blended some old with the new. You know, they helped us create a new logo that's us. But then our old Saber Wolves patch from back in the day, they put it on the back, and they really done. And then they've made pants for us as well that we really like. Adrenaline, of course, as you know, Adrenaline makes us. I think we're the only team that has two versions of a signature series shocker.
That's wicked.
And so it's a dream come true for us to have our own signature series shocker. They shoot beautifully. Love them, and we're very thankful for them. Kind of along the lines with Adrenaline, there's Shocker, GOG, Hans, and Russell. They provide us with just unbelievable tech support, no questions asked. I like supporting companies that I believe in, and I like the people, and that's been an easy one for us. Inception Designs.
Simon's so awesome, isn't he?
That guy is just unbelievably awesome. There's no word that and really the whole organization, Brian, Simon, all those guys, they make fantastic products. We shoot their Stella barrels, and then we use their GoPro mounts. I've got some young guys that like to do social media, and they do videos, and I love it. And
well, tell them they're welcome to share on my Popular Unknown podcast group if they want to.
I'll tell them for sure. And then last but not least, we've got Insane. I got two last but not least. We've got Insane Paintball and Airsoft. We've kind of considered that our home field. It's owned by one of the Saber Wolves, Jared Powell, and he and Eric Evans, another one of the Saber Wolves, really run it. It's a first-class, world-class operation. We've got the best hyperball field in the South. And they're down in Chattanooga. If you're ever in Chattanooga, stop by and play. It's fantastic. And then last but not least, the Pointer Brothers Pro Shop. You know, we've got Carl and Kyle, Pointer Brothers, on the Saber Wolves. I'm very honored to play with them. I love their brilliance in the woods. They're just fantastic. They really bring a lot to the team. And then they run the Pointer Brothers Pro Shop in Newcastle, Indiana, where you can get BMX and all that kind of stuff. And so we support them. So those are the 8 sponsors that from the bottom of my heart, really on behalf of the Saber Wolves, I would want to mention and thank.
Yeah, well, they're all fantastic people. I've met most of the people you've mentioned at one point or another. So with all the craziness going on, I'm not sure what the next game or what the next event is going to be like. Are the Saber Wolves ever going to get together as a group and do some scenario stuff just for fun? Like, do you guys ever play just for fun?
Yeah. So yes, we do. And I will say that most of the ways that the Saber Wolves get together is actually off of the paintball field. We do a lot of stuff on boats and hunting and gaming. And I think a lot of our guys are nightly on Xbox Live or something like that now, and they keep up with each other that way.
Doing Fortnite, I guess?
I'm not a gamer, but a lot of my guys are. And so I'm not sure what they're playing. But yeah, actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because there has been some discussion. So the MAC, the Mid-Atlantic Classic, we've played and won that for the last 2 years, a 10-man event up in, I guess, Maryland, Chesapeake Bay, up there where OXCC is, Outdoor Extreme.
Okay.
So Brian Barno and the guys up there have a really nice field set up. and they run a huge event, a scenario event every year. There has been some discussion about trying to get up there and play a scenario event. I respect that a lot of that maybe the majority of the paintball community, not maybe, definitely the majority of the paintball community plays recreationally, and
Right.
a large number of that community plays scenario games and really enjoys them. It's never been my particular cup of tea, but I've gone to a few and I've enjoyed going to them and hanging out with people that I like and
Right.
kind of taking it for what it is and enjoying the experience and having fun, not necessarily trying to win. It's hard for me to play paintball without trying to win. It's that competitive.
Yes, I get it. Believe me, I understand completely.
There's been some discussion about trying to get together and maybe even I don't want to say too much, but maybe even with trying to do a 10-on-10 with another team that's up there for the same reasons as kind of a sort of an exhibition for paintball. And so stay tuned. At some point, I think something like that will happen, but there has been some discussion about the Saber Wolves doing that.
All right. Well, the reason why I ask is because it's my understanding that the Monte Casino game in Illinois has been postponed, and that's Bud Orr and Dan Colby of Immortal Air, and they tend to co-captain. They've been co-captaining for years, and it's just a fun game, and there's a good chance I will be there for that.
Okay.
So I'll be down in Illinois for that. The Denver Expendables and the Ally Remembered Foundation in Denver, obviously, are going to be doing a charity event for the foundation, and they're going to be raffling off a lot of stuff, but it's just going to be for fun. So if you think you're going to be around in Denver, there's a good chance I'm going to be there for that too. I mean, just depending on what's going on with all the craziness. And then I can't stress enough that Richard Wilcox in Northern California is doing a charity event against cancer. And that's a big event coming up now. I know it's been postponed, but with all the craziness going on, I'm not going to give out the actual dates because I really don't know. But it's my understanding that a majority of the old timers and most popular of the California, so I believe Bog Long is supposed to be there, all that. I'm going to try to fly into Cali for that, and I'd love to see you there as well. But a lot of the old, like the really iconic people are going to be there for celebrity shoots and things like that. So, yeah. So those are coming up. So if tournaments get canceled, and a lot of them are going to, because it's just too hard to schedule. But a lot of these big events are just getting moved a little bit. So if you get the chance, come swing out, join us.
I appreciate it.
That'd be kind of fun to roll in with the a few Saber Wolves. There'll be a bunch of old OG Ironmen there already. Not to mention some of the Dynasty guys. There's also going to be a celebrity shoot. There's also going to be a celebrity shoot, which basically means you get a pair of goggles and a garbage can lid, and you run out, and people pay, I think it's like $10 to unload a few rounds on you. And so you're just out there as a target. So I'm going to stand out there. So if you're going to get a chance, you got to come out and do a celebrity shoot with me and take a pounding to help prevent cancer.
Nice.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, have we forgotten anything? Like, is there anything that you want to talk about as well? Or we've been at it for an hour and a half. So yeah, I think it doesn't feel like that at all. We could talk for nearly 2 hours easy, couldn't we?
Oh, we absolutely could. So I will say that I've tried to make kind of a big point that I'm the second of a 3-generation paintball playing. I've mentioned my father still plays every week. My oldest daughter plays on the Saber Wolves with me. My oldest 2 boys played their first tournament at the 2019 Tampa ICPL. I've got 5 kids. My youngest 2 are just waiting to turn 10 so they can get out there and play. My wife has played. I think she's going to start playing again, especially when our youngest 2 get out there. So it's a great family sport, and it's just another thing to do together, and stories and physical fitness. My dad says that he does it to stay in shape and to stay active and keep fit.
Well, nothing motivates you faster to run than getting shot at.
He's a ninja, and everywhere he goes, people, I guess, overlook him. They don't take him seriously, and then he gets out on the field and destroys all creation. And so, but that's the thing about paintball. It's you don't.
Yep.
You
That's your best weapon.
You play it to your strengths, and good technique and smart paintball, and you get good and better by doing just the fundamentals. And so it doesn't matter whether you're big or small or short or tall or whatever it is.
Right.
Old, it's a wonderful sport. And so if you've got an inkling to take family out, or family's wondering, use my family as an example, and get everybody out there. I'm never going to stop playing. I'm going to play until I croak, and hope that's much, much later. But
right.
Viva la paintball.
Okay, so do you have any questions for me? Because I have one more big question for you. It's been driving me nuts the whole tournament. But do you have any questions for me first?
No, that's it. I'm good.
Okay. Behind you, there is a pod sitting on a counter.
Yeah.
And it says something. What is the story behind that pod? Because you have a very clean place, but you have one pod sitting out.
Yeah, so this was given to me by the guys on the Wolves. Let me see if I can figure out where to get that. There we go. So the Saber Wolves, we have team pods, and so we have a large number of pods that have our names stuck to them, stickers on them, so that we know what they are, and so that the guys don't have to worry about bringing pods or any of those types of things. And at the World Cup, Tom set up a autograph signing for us, which this is another one of those. I was kind of rolling my eyes, like, really, we're the Saber Wolves, we're not Dynasty Ball, but it was really well attended. I couldn't believe it. There are a lot of people that came by. We signed a lot of posters, handed away a lot of posters, and it was kind of a fun and enjoyable experience. People knew who we were and knew who.
I told you.
It was something else. So while we were there, the guys that were there at the World Cup all signed that pod. And, these things, these moments, try to get that into, these moments really are the things that mean the most to me. I mean, these experiences. And so I had a knee injury, so I didn't get to play the 10-man World Cup. The guys did, and they won. I captained it, I guess. I was there in a jersey, and I was a true alternate. But just the experience was there. And so that's what that pod is. It's got the signatures of the guys that were at the World Cup on it, and various gold and black and a couple of Sharpies that I don't know if you can see them, but
right.
So that's what that is. And so even though we're sitting here talking, I put that there on top of my printer because you're just interviewing me, but I consider myself a representative of the team, and I'm one cog in the machine that is the Saber Wolves, and I'm just very, very appreciative for all of those guys.
Well, like I said, I could have stuck a couple more people in when I was talking to you earlier, but you wanted to hog all the glory for yourself. I get it. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I love talking to you, and I would love to do it again in the near future. Because I think we both got, or I think you've got so many more stories.
Oh man,
that I want to hear, and I'm sure everybody else wants to hear as well. So for future, if you want to get back on, just reach out, or if there's something specific you want to talk about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at any time.
Okay.
And I look forward to seeing you at the next events, because I should be at most NXL events.
Okay.
Should be there's a lot. With everything that's going on right now, I can't predict what's going to happen.
That's true.
Nobody can. But I should be at those. And it's our desire to try to make it to ICPL events as well for the foundation and the Pip Pals program, things like that. So we're going to try to do that. So I should be seeing you on a semi-regular basis. But I'd like to actually play with you, against you at some point in the near future too, just because you're a cool dude and I like being around that kind of passion. So
thank you, friend. I feel
as long as you can take, as long as you can handle bringing me along, and you don't mind having boat anchor written across the back of my jersey, because because that's about what I am to a team these days. He's the boat anchor, not an anchor. They're useful. The boat anchor that just sort of slows you down. So, all right, Justin, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise.
I think this was a blast. This is going to be, it's live on Facebook, so you can watch it anytime. But I am going to download the audio, and it's going to go into an audio podcast so that you can share that with your family and friends. And I'm also going to download all this video and upload it to YouTube as well. So this will be able to be shared on 3 different mediums.
Okay.
How awesome is that?
That is awesome.
All right.
Have
a great day, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. And good luck to all the team, all the guys on, well, guys and girls. Sorry. Hey, gotta make sure I get it. Good luck to everybody on the Saber Wolves, and please know I'll be rooting against you.
No worries, my friend.
Shoot, kill, win.
Be safe.
Talk to you guys later.